Good afternoon. We'll go ahead and call the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners Budget Workshop Special Meeting to order on February 26th at 2 p.m. I want to welcome everyone here, and I'll go ahead and ask for the invocation and pledge. Vice Chairman Jones, I'd ask for you to bring the invocation and pledge.
Mr. Chairman. Heavenly Father, we just thank you. We thank you for this opportunity to serve. We ask that things be done in decency and order. We lift those that are in need of prayer, for those that are sick and the homeless, and we ask that the weather will improve here in North Carolina. We ask for that of guidance and just safety for our first responders, our military, and just that of all our leaders and all those families here in Cumberland County. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll go ahead and move to item 1. County Manager Greer, any changes to the agenda?
No, Chairman Deviere, no changes to the agenda.
Commissioners, any questions on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Vice Chairman Jones, you're recognized.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Got a motion to approve the agenda. It's been properly seconded. Madam Clerk, we're going to do a hand vote. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, after you vote, raise your right hand. Affirmative.
Unanimous.
And we'll go ahead and move to item 2. I want to give the manager an opportunity to say a couple words. Let me set a little bit of framework around this. We wanted to make sure we had this workshop this year to begin to, one, look at our timeline for the budget, but also have some commissioner guidance and thoughts as the staff is in the middle, so to speak, of their workshop. But this is the appropriate time where we can give some input, so when we get to the June-May timeframe that we're more aligned. The hopes is that the board's guidance, philosophies, input will be incorporated into the manager's recommended budget, so we'll be closer to a budget that aligns with both the board and the staff. One thing just from a flow of the meeting today, we've set aside 2 hours in talking with the manager. We thought that was enough time to move through this at a high level, provide the information so we have some updated information, provide any guidance back to the staff. Plan not to take, if we need to take a motion, we'll take a motion. It'll be more for consensus of direction. We'll take a motion if we need to.
It seems to be operating perfectly.
And we've got 2 hours set aside, so I'm going to establish as we move forward on each of the topics as we move through. I'm going to allow the commissioners 1 round. With that round, you'll have 2 questions, so you'll have the ability to ask a question and ask a follow-up. I would ask that the commissioners are respectful of that, so that we can move through this and get the information we need and move through the entire presentations and information that we'll receive from the staff. So again, I'd ask you to be considerate. I will look to provide flexibility as needed, but I'd ask that you be respectful of the process. And again, 1 round, 2 questions each. So a question if there's a follow-up. With that, Mr. Manager, I'll turn it over to you to give any opening comments, and then we'll move forward.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today we formally start the fiscal year 2026-27 budget process in preparation. We have a presentation that goes through some of the requested information that's on the agenda and provides updated financial information, and will seek guidance on the fiscal year 2027 budget. Additionally, we'll probably have a discussion with debt. We have Doug Carter with Doug Carter and Associates virtually to answer any questions that we may have regarding debt and provide feedback and any questions that you may have. Right now, I turn it over to Deborah Shaw, Assistant County Manager, Chief Budget Officer, Performance and Budget Officer, to start the presentation. And then as we go through, we'll answer any questions that you may have. Deborah?
So we're going to go ahead and start on item 3,
Yes.
the current financial position.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions before we begin? All right, hearing none. Ms. Shaw, or excuse me, Assistant County Manager Shaw? Thank you.
Okay. I was going to start with the budget timeline, but I can adapt to bring Robin Kuntz up for the current financial position.
Chairman, I think the flow, we'll get into the current financial position, but we definitely need to go through the budget timeline first. As part of the current financial position. If we can go, it's only one slide. We can go through it.
That's fine. Go ahead, County Manager.
Go ahead.
Welcome, and thank you for bringing us all together for our first budget workshop for 27. I wanted to start with presenting the timeline. We are currently having departments enter their new budget requests. They start with a zero budget, and they enter all the new requests for this year. They have until February the 28th, and yes, that is a Saturday, and yes, people will actually be entering their budgets up to that point. March the 12th through the 13th. Budget and performance team, we use this time to bring in the departments individually to meet with us as a team for us to ask any questions, for us to say, this doesn't make sense why you're asking, to try to clear up some misconceptions or to understand so that when we move to the meetings with the county manager, which is March the 16th through the 26th, it flows smoothly. Each department will be in front of the county manager presenting their request of why they have placed in their budget what's needed. April the 1st through the 14th, the departments, we asked for third quarter projections. Third quarter projections are better than the second quarter. They're more in line, they're closer. Departments have a truer tale of what they have spent and what they're going to spend for the remainder of the year. May the 1st, budget has to have a draft to the county manager of the recommended budget. He takes this at that point and starts tweaking, and we have a lot of dialogue back and forth. In the past, we have presented the budget the Thursday before Memorial Day. I just placed this up there. I have not sent this to the board to vote on. This is just a placeholder. I'm just not being presumptuous. That's just how it's been in the past. Then in May and June, we will be gathering dates with the clerk and be taking those to the Finance Committee first and then flow to the second meeting of March for adoption of the budget work sessions and dates. At this time, I will turn over our current financial position to our Chief Financial Officer, Robin Kuntz.
Commissioners, any questions on the budget timeline before we go to the projections? Commissioners, Vice Chairman Jones, you're recognized for one round.
Yes, just one question.
Yes, ma'am.
How many departments do we have?
27, but then we have special funds, and we have to look at every dollar. There's departments, but then we also look at the different funds that are in there. But over 27 departments.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay. Go ahead and move forward.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
The first thing that we have in your PowerPoint for the financial snapshot is the normal report that you get every month as part of your finance documentation. This has been updated through January of 2026. So this is just a quick snapshot. If you look at the revenues total at the bottom that we've recorded so far this year, we are at 66.7. If you look percent of our budget collected, if you look at this time last year, it was about 62.2. So we're a little bit further ahead this time this year than we were a year ago. And then if you go down to the expenditures, we've expended 47.7% of our budget. This time last year was about 45.5. So expenditures a little bit further ahead. revenue collection a little bit further ahead, but that's just a snapshot of January through January revenues and expenses. Okay. The next sheet in your packet is fund balance trends. So what you'll see on this sheet, there's two sections of the chart. The top section is fund balance as of right now. So when you look at the January 26, that's our current fund balance, and I gave you those same figures for the 4 years preceding. And I've done it for the general fund, the county school fund, capital investment, special fire district, and recreation fund. And then if you go to the bottom section, obviously we don't have a full year's worth of data for 26 yet, but I did give you the same information for a full year for the 4 years that preceded. So you can kind of get an idea of what our fund balances look like. We are, if you look at 26, we are about $3.6 million less in fund balance right now than we were this time last year, and we attribute that to spending of our ARPA freed up capacity monies. And then we are about $8.2 million less in the county school fund balance as compared to this time last year, and that is attributable to more PAYGO projects that they've spent money on over the last couple of years. So we've seen an increase in that. You know, years ago, their PAYGO was kind of in the $10 to $13 million range. Last year, it was about $20 million, and they carried $14 million of expenditures into this fiscal year too. So that's why you're seeing some change there. But just real high-level fund balance trends, if anybody has any questions. If not, I'll keep clicking. All right. I was asked to list our commitments that we have, known commitments. So what you have on this page is a summary of the items that are in our debt models. You know, we have the education model, the general government model, and the water sewer model. So about $460 million in our debt model for education. As you know, the school system is going to ask for an additional $150 million in new school construction. So that number, that ask will go up. But currently what's in our model is $460 million. And then in general government, I listed the PAYGO projects that we agreed upon in the last budget cycle. So you have each of those. This is a total of $81,850,000 for general government. And you can see those listed. If you want to talk about any of them in particular, we can. And then, but for planning for the water sewer model, at your last budget time frame, it was $120 million in water sewer projects over the next several years.
So I'll pause so that we can get questions on the series of slides that you went through.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, any questions so far? Vice Chairman Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, as you were stating about the school board in regards to, you said, as we know, that they will be asking for $150 million in regards to for new schools. I know that we had last discussed at the prior budget meeting that we were going to itemize that. Is that not going to be included in here? We stated that we were going to itemize 150 specifically for E. Smith and that we wanted it to stay worded that way. So I didn't see that in here. Was there a change?
No, everything that's listed on this page is things that are in our current approved debt models. So the $160 million that you see there for new schools construction has been there the whole time. There's $300 million for deferred maintenance. The $150 I'm referring to is going to be an additional ask, but y'all have not approved that, so I have not listed that.
Okay, so this is separate than the 150 that we
Yes,
set
ma'am.
aside exclusively for E.
Yes,
Smith.
ma'am.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And again, this is a snapshot of looking back at what we've already approved.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Thank you. I'm sorry, Commissioners, any other questions?
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Spence.
So I was asked to do some trends. So I picked up on a couple of areas that I thought might be of interest. This first page is the general fund sales tax. And you can see on the left, each of the articles are listed where we collect sales tax. The top section of this shows the first 5 months. We've only collected 5 months because the sales tax is 2 month lag. So that's why you see 5 months there. But that's what we've collected for 2026, and you can see that's compared to the 2026 budget. But then I've given you the full year to the right of this blue line. You see the full year for the last, for the prior 4 years, and then there's a 4-year average over here to the side. But then on the next section down here, I've given the same data at a 5-month snapshot, so you could compare point in time to point in time. And then if you look at the increase so far for fiscal year 2026, what we've collected over fiscal year 2025 is a 29.1% increase this year as opposed to this time last year. And it was budgeted at 26.3%. So that gives you a little bit of idea what's happening with sales tax.
Commissioners, questions on the sales tax side before we move forward? Commissioner Adams, you're recognized.
And I'm looking at the actuals, and that's, I know it's 5 months because we 1 month when they give it, but it looks as though sales tax just flat.
I would say yes, sir. Mhm.
Yes, right now we're trending flat with maybe a slight decrease of approximately $175,000. I think that has to do with the government shutdown, not spending, and we're looking at that we rebound hopefully in the next, as we go out through the fiscal year.
You waiting on the tax return?
Yes. Tax returns appear to be trending a little bit higher than last fiscal year, so hopefully everybody will go out and spend a little bit, so our sales tax will go back.
That's what it is.
Commissioners, other questions on sales tax? Okay, let's continue.
This snapshot is of Parks and Recreation, and so obviously we have 7 months worth of data on this report because we're in the 7th month through the end of January. But you'll see the 7 months of 2026 actuals compared to the budget for 2026, and you can see the percentage of the budget that we've earned in this column. And then I did go ahead and add expenditures into this too, in case you had any questions about any of the capital improvement projects. But you can see those expenditures budgeted and what has actually been incurred as of the end of January. And then you've got, the 4 prior years to that to compare, just to kind of get an idea of how things were changing.
Commissioners, questions on the Parks and Rec side? Commissioner Tyson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And correct me if I'm wrong, when we went through the budgeting process last year, we knew there was going to be a pretty significant increase in our recreation tax revenue.
Correct.
It was my understanding that the board gave the direction that we didn't want to automatically hand over that increase over to our partners that we currently had until we had a new agreement in place. So I'm trying to understand if the actuals or the 230, is that denoted in here that we've held that money back?
The 230 that you see, so if you look at the top, that 6.9 million is what we've collected. If you look at the expenditure section, that's what we've paid out, and that's obviously related to the capital projects. And so that money that we've received so far, I'm waiting on direction to decide what we're going to do on that.
Follow up to that, Mr. Chairman. I know I
Got your
did one
one.
follow-up. Yes, sir. So with that, is there typically a time that we would, in the normal course of business, release that funding?
Yes.
And if so, can you kind of walk
Sure.
through that?
Yes, sir. So normally, obviously, these revenues build and become greater during the heavier tax parts of the year. So we get through January normally, and then we start dispersing. We do our big first pass to the city of Fayetteville, and then after that, it usually happens sometime in February, and then after that, we do it a couple more times, and by the end of the year, finish it out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is in regards to, since we're talking about park and recreations, I know that our manager and their manager are trying to negotiate with certain agreements. Will that then later before, I guess this might be a question for you, Mr. Greer, based on those agreements that may or may not happen, will that change the entity of this projections of these numbers?
Not right now,
now.
because the numbers are based on the tax. The only thing we would probably change may be the distribution along the different capital improvements and the expenditures, but the taxes are taxed based on what we've set the rate at.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Adams, you're recognized.
And I guess my question would be, I'm looking at the Parks and Rec, and it seems like those who have towns, which have boards, have gotten their money, but I'm looking at like Bethany, J.D. Pone, which they don't have a town or a council, but no money has been expended, and they got to be in that recreation tax. I don't understand, if I can get some clarity. They don't have anybody advocating for them like these towns do, so I'm looking at some of these areas that I'm just trying to figure out why.
In the past, we haven't really had a capital sit-down planning regarding the Parks and Recreation. Hopefully, and I'm as to say hopefully because I know it's going to happen, hopefully over this month, we'll sit down with all the towns, make sure we have what capital needs they have, all the have boards and don't, and then bring that to the board for presentation as part of the budget process.
You can follow up.
Yeah, just a little bit. And I'm looking at Spring Lake. I know we did something out of Mendoza Park because we authorized it, but it doesn't show on here. It shows the Spring Lake Rec Center, which is in the town, but we did quite a bit out at Mendoza Park.
If you look at the town of Spring Lake grant, second line from the bottom,
0.
2025.
It's
Oh, it's
2020.
in 2025.
so, and this was the money,
Okay.
grant money came in right here.
I see
And
that
was
top.
spent right there.
Okay, that's over there in 2025.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, other questions on Parks and Rec? Okay, let's go ahead and move forward.
Okay.
Or did you? Go ahead.
All right, and this is a snapshot of our fire districts, kind of designed the same way as the prior slide for Parks and Rec. You have the budget, the actuals for the first 7 months, and then the percentage of revenue that we've recognized so far and what's been expended, and then 4 years previous to that to compare it to. And again, I'd be glad to answer any questions on that as well.
Commissioners, questions on fire tax? Commissioner Tyson?
Thank you. So, I know when we went through this process last year, this board made a pretty bold decision to keep our fire tax rate constant. With that, I know there's certain metrics, certain incentive programs that we offer certain districts
Yes.
relating to low wealth, some of that realignment.
ISO ratings, all of that. Mhm.
Yes. Did the actual expenditures in this category take into account relooking at those incentives that we offer to see if some of those districts still qualified after they got their increase in their revenue?
So Freddie Johnson and I have talked about that some. He feels like we need to go back and look at the low wealth piece of it again. Obviously, he has a pulse on all the fire district stuff. But so I think that we did it this year the way we've always done it with those pieces, but probably we'll go back and take a different approach, or at least look at it a little bit different and bring that back for the next fiscal year.
County Manager, do you have something to add?
As part of and as Robin stated, we've been evaluating that every year. We've been evaluating recently because of agreement that we're trying to bring forward with the town of Spring Lake. We feel that several of the low wealth districts will no longer be low wealth, and will give us an opportunity to probably address some other needs and distribute the fire tax a more equitable way across all of the districts.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, you got your one.
Thank you. So as we look to do that, I know communication to our districts, to our chiefs is going to be very important. I would hope that during this process, and the rest of the board can interject, that we would be engaging our president of our Chiefs Association in these discussions so that he can help with the communication piece to some of those districts. And that would be, I think, very appropriate so that we can make sure this isn't a surprise or a shock to anybody.
County Manager.
Yeah, Chief Johnson and I always in constant communication about this very thing. We try to make sure, again, that we have opportunity to address some needs that have been lacking. In the low wealth, I think there would be maybe one or two at the most this upcoming fiscal year when we present the budget, and we'll be able to address some needs of other fire districts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Jones, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question, because I know we just left Park and Recreations and you were stating at the top of the page about grants. I don't want to jump ahead, but the grants that we provided in the fire department also was able to partake in that, community impact grants. Is that included in this grants, just so I can keep up grant total from over in Park and Recreations, or would that be somewhere else in the budget?
Somewhere else.
Separate,
Somewhere
somewhere
else.
else? Just want to make it clear of that. Thank you.
Commissioner Adams, you recognize.
I just have one question, and it's in the fire districts and in the Parks and Rec. What's penalties in the revenue? What constitutes?
That's penalties that we receive for people who pay their taxes late.
Okay, I pay my own tax.
Commissioners, other questions? Get your name in the plate. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Coons.
Really, this was my last slide. I was asked yesterday that y'all might be interested in maybe the potential transfer that we'll do from the general fund as you're planning to the capital investment fund. That is not a finalized calculation, but I did want to provide kind of a preliminary number for you. It looks like it's just over $11.1 million. So just for your notes and planning purposes.
Can you explain again what that is, just to make sure everybody understood that number?
Yes, sir. So at the end of the year, we look at our total general fund expenditures and calculate what 15% of that looks like. And anything that we have in unassigned fund balance that's in excess of that, we're allowed to transfer that into the capital investment fund. And that's been an annual transfer for several years now.
And that was, last year, we set a percentage because it was a formula in prior years,
Yes, it's everything in excess of 15% of the general fund balance.
not the same one. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, I made the mistake, so it's not the same. That's been set.
You're right. The
Right.
new base is $18,700,000 was the base, and then if you look at the CPI index every February, starting with 28.
Additional questions on that, commissioners? All right.
There is one last revenue trend highlight slide that Deborah's team provided. It gives you a little bit more information. I don't really have any comments for that, but if you have any other questions, I'd be glad to bring Deborah up here or try to answer myself.
Commissioners, questions on this trend slide? Vice Chairman Jones, you recognize.
Can you just briefly elaborate? So what are some of the things that would fall under this miscellaneous?
I am so glad you asked that question. So I brought I brought my sheet so that I could, that would be like interest income, the lease to Cape Fear Valley Hospital, postage.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Commissioner Tyson and then Commissioner Adams.
Thank you. Would that also cover the payment in lieu of taxes that the hospital?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Adams, you recognize.
So the percentage over here, is that the percent of increase from prior year, or what is the?
That's
it's just a percent over there, so.
That's just the percent of where we are today compared to the adopted budget, actuals compared to adopted budget.
Gotcha.
Commissioner Patel, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one clarifying question, just chatting with Commissioner Fairclough. On the lease land for the hospital system, when will those, how do those numbers adjust as the hospital system grows? Not just from a value standpoint, but when they build?
What, payment in lieu of taxes?
Yeah, the 4.5.
And I apologize, I'm not 100%. Do you have a better understanding
What's
of
the
that?
question again?
The land lease in lieu of the 4 million, something that we get from the hospital.
Oh, the payment in lieu of taxes.
Yeah.
The pilot. It changes based on the value every year. If it goes up, goes down, and net of their depreciation. We send them out an estimate on what it's going to be, what they need to pay right around this time of year. So I can find out that number for you and bring it back when it's going to be this year.
I was just interested because of the new medical school being there. I'm sure that'll add some value.
Yeah, I don't think that's come online. That's Methodist, I think.
Commissioner Fairclough.
If I can add a little clarity, every time the hospital acquires a piece of property that was previously on the tax rolls, they have to pay that tax to the county.
See, they already own that piece of
Yeah,
property, so it won't give you anything. They owned all of that. Yeah.
They're paying on that
Yeah.
for prior years, but they didn't buy anything new. In other words,
So they continue to pay on it.
yeah,
But it's improved property now.
Yeah.
just because they built a building on it doesn't mean that they owe tax on it, okay?
I built a building on my
All
property.
right, hold on, let's, I think the question is if there's increased value on the property, just some definition, or maybe if there's an agreement in place, we can get a copy of the agreement so Commissioner Patel can look at that and ask any questions around it. I think the question is if there's increased value on that footprint, are they paying more back to us in lieu of taxes?
And I'm gonna tell you the answer's no, okay? Look up all you want, but if they didn't take it off the tax books, they didn't take all those bricks and mortar off the tax books, you follow?
If we can get that document just so that new commissioners, not ones that have been here forever, that understand it, just so they can have a clear picture of it.
The seasoned one.
The seasoned ones, that's right, we learned that last night. No offense, Commissioner Fairclough, we appreciate your wisdom.
I told him, for example, the stabbing ground. That's what I told him, for example.
Yeah, that will.
Any other questions on the revenue trend side? All right, we'll go ahead and
Thank you.
thank you.
Next is the board strategic priorities, your top priorities and policy goals for FY27, service areas that need increased investment, service areas where efficiencies or reductions should be explored, and any new initiative the board wants the manager and staff to evaluate.
So board, in conversations with the manager, we just wanted to look at, as we look at, we came out of the strategic planning session, we reconfirmed the priorities and policies. Is there anything that we want to look at that we viewed needed from a service area based on our strategic planning, because our budget is driven by our strategic plan, that we wanted to increase or see reductions, or if there were any new initiatives that came out of the strategic plan, and I'm unaware of them except for our discussion around Shaw Heights, which we still have some information coming back on Shaw Heights. So those would be this is just a way that we want to make the linkage between our strategic plan and the budget. I'll go to Vice Chairman Jones and then Commissioner Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want us to be mindful. I know we no longer have the ARP committee, but the importance and significance of our community grants. I appreciate that we have the mini community impact grant going out here. However, we did make a large investment for our nonprofits, and I just want to make sure that we keep that on the radar to make sure moving forward, as it was it made a big difference and impact for nonprofits. It's called nonprofits for a reason, as these individuals do provide great services in our community from the 5 categories, as we know, everything from the health to even our first responders being able to get more assistance what's needed. So I just want to make sure in this budget that we're mindful of that, because I do know from hearing from our constituents in the community, it made a large impact, and we want to make sure that we continue to be funding sources for our nonprofits. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Tyson, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know we're going to talk about in a few slides down the road this question, but I think everybody on the board knows last year with where the rate was set, we did look at appropriating fund balance to kind of cover that. And so as we look at service areas where efficiencies or reductions should be explored, my emphasis or ask on that is, we're gonna, have to have that hard discussion again about that appropriation. And as we look at the service levels that we provide across the county, I would like to know what is kind of the tiered service level. So what is something that is mandated by statute that we provide? And then what are we providing over and above that mandate, and have it as a level form so the board can evaluate that under the efficiencies or reductions of service levels, Mr. Chairman. That would be my ask.
Commissioner Adams, you're recognized, and then I'll go to Commissioner Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think one of the major initiatives we ought to think about is our libraries. We haven't done anything with them in a number of years. Some of them with the new technology and all the stuff that's going on, I think we need to have some issue and discussion about how we proceed with our public library systems all over the county. The second thing is, which is it's probably within one of the scopes, but if you walk out here and look at the sheriff's department, we ought to clean up our buildings. I mean, it's got dirt all over it with black. So somewhere in here, some kind of maintenance on the outside of our buildings, not the grounds, but the buildings themselves.
Manager Greer, we talk about it now, or we talk about it when we get to the debt, but I know there's discussion around the overall deferred maintenance of all our buildings, and I know you were beginning to take a look at that. Is that something you'll talk about later? Because there'll be a cost associated with that.
Yes, there'll be a cost associated with that. I'm trying to evaluate the estimation of the cost for that study. Don't have it right now. We want to bring that back at a later date, probably in a later work session. More than likely, I have it by mid-April.
Okay. I'll go to Commissioner Ramsey, Commissioner Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we look at these priorities and where we're going to potentially spend money, looking back at last year on ACM Shaw, can you give us the number that we did use from our general fund?
That we use for what?
From the general fund last year?
We appropriated approximately 22.
12, I think it was 12.9. Maybe 12.9.
I do not have that off the top of my head, but I can get it.
12.1, I'm sorry.
12.1.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. 12.1.
Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Patel? All right, Chairman Jones, I'll recognize you. One question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and this is in reference to what we're discussing here. Since we're talking about the buildings being cleaned up, I think we need to make a better investment. Also been hearing that a lot from the community in regards to our corridor areas outside of these county buildings. And when we're doing that study, Manager Greer, can we see about possibility in that study, feasibility study of how we can make this community a little bit more handicap friendly, since we are a large portion of veterans, and also we have a lot of civilians that are handicapped. We don't have a lot of areas like for sitting benches or even sidewalks. I don't think there's been a study done in a long time of sufficiency of how in the county areas that it could be maybe, more user-friendly for individuals that have handicaps. So is there a way that study can infiltrate that in there? And again, buildings are important, but so is the corridor areas. If we're talking about, wanting to be able to have investors wanting to come to our community as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, Manager Greer, and I think you'll talk about it, the debt model, because I know we had a conversation around the cost of that deferred maintenance on our existing buildings, like the courthouse, like the LEC, like the health department, like the DSS. So that's what you're looking to bring back in April, either outsource, internal, so that we get a picture of what that set aside that we're going to need to do?
I think it needs to be an external study that's similar to what the school system just recently had. I think we need a outside eye. A lot of times when you're internal, you see the same thing, but you don't look at it the same way. Others that external will have a different lens for it and will provide us better feedback than we've been getting in the past.
So when we get to that portion, will we have a dollar amount that we can, a placeholder that we can put in, one for the consultant and two for an estimated cost, so we can put a placeholder for planning?
I think, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Commissioner Adams?
Just one thing.
Yep, You got one more question. Go ahead.
Well, kind of a comment. As we do that study, can we look at some of the issues of payment, putting something out west so that everybody doesn't have to drive downtown, that whether it be at the library or we find a building out there, so that everybody doesn't, if you got a parking problem, if you can do it out in the county or in the western part, they don't have to come down there. So as we do that study, we can take that into consideration of convenience for people in terms of coming down here. I like the kiosks.
Anything else on strategic initiatives? Or is there anything that we need to peel off or add?
No, not right now.
Okay.
No.
All right, hearing no other questions, we'll go ahead and move forward to our item 5, major initiative direction. And again, on this is really, we're not getting in the, let me just help the manager set the framework for this. This is not an update on each of these projects. This is, because this is, do we want to change anything on here, or based on any projections, is there any additional resources that the manager would need on any of these that are already, these are the major initiatives that are already in place. So we just want to highlight anything and make sure there aren't any changes or additional resources, or this is the opportunity where we could say, you know, we may not want to look at that one moving forward. So, County Manager Greer, I'll turn it back over to you. I just want to make sure we're not giving a status update on each one of these.
Yes, I'll turn this one over to Deborah Shaw, and Deborah go through right quick.
Okay, the water and sewer infrastructure is currently budgeted within the debt model. School construction and operational, the school construction is in the debt model. I'm looking at the Chief Financial Officer just to verify. In-house support center is currently as a placeholder in the debt model. The Crown Complex redevelopment, scope of investment the board is comfortable exploring, that is not programmed in the debt model, is it? No. Regional Aquatic Center, we have $500,000 budgeted for a study, but other than that, we would bring back for direction from the board. Mental Health Diversion Center is currently budgeted within the debt model. 911 consolidation, we will need direction from the board. Parks and Rec, review of the interlocal requirements, direction from the board.
Commissioners, I'll open it up for discussion around, or questions around major initiatives. Vice Chairman Jones, you're recognized, and then I'll go to Commissioner Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we stated, we were discussing to see if we wanted something added in or taken out. I do have a question in regards to, we've been talking about for a long time the governance building, having a governance building. I don't know if that's still going to be a project of discussion that might help eliminate. A lot of people are coming to this courthouse for things that possibility if we had a government building, they could do it there. I just know that's been a big discussion of a project, but it's kind of been lingering in the air. We haven't heard anything about, you know, moving forward or not. That might be something we want to explore or have staff to discuss.
County Manager Greer, in previous debt models, that was in, but it was removed from the last board-approved debt model, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Vice Chairman Jones, are you?
I follow up, yes, when we removed it, how much was that money, or is that still on the table for consideration? To bring back if
I think
needed?
that's a board. If there's consensus on the board to look at it as we move forward in this debt model.
Yeah, if you all want me to look through it, we'll go back. I can't remember the dollar amount right offhand, but vaguely remember $30 million.
You said vaguely 30?
But I'll have to go back and go through that.
So Vice Chairman, if we could, when we get to the debt model, we'll have a picture of what all we're spending it on, and so maybe we have a discussion there if we want to inject the government services building back in there.
All right, that'll be fine.
Does that work?
Perhaps, yeah, a different price at that time.
Commissioner Tyson, I'll go to Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to comment on the previous comment, I think during the budget, we had removed it because we were going to get a comprehensive facilities assessment before we went to relook at that, if my memory serves me correct. So I think the manager's still working on that facility assessment pending us making that decision. But that wasn't what I wanted to comment on. It's my understanding that we're going to be working through our consolidation and the school board's capital plan as it comes through. So what I don't know when the timeline of that's going to be, but when that does come through, I would like the adjustments to the school model made as the board kind of moves that through our process. So that was one thing that I saw. And then on the Crown Complex redevelopment item, my memory was this board had authorized up to $100 million for you to look at doing that redevelopment. So I was under the impression, Mr. Chairman, we had already given an up to number as we had looked to explore that for that redevelopment. Am I wrong about that, Mr. Chairman?
That was the direction to the manager for the RFP, but through the RFQ, but through the planning portion, and I don't believe you made the motion, there wasn't a dollar. There wasn't a dollar amount, because through the planning, the pre-planning, we're going to come back from the pre-planning with a dollar amount, and then we'd be able to, as a board, agree to a dollar amount there.
Gotcha. Okay.
I believe that Commissioner Patel deliberately didn't put a dollar amount in there.
Just
That's right.
just for information, I've been peppered about that what the dollar amount
We have
is.
to.
Over the last couple of months.
Commissioner Adams, you're recognized.
I guess I was with the press because I thought it was up to 100 million. But that wasn't any debt model, that was just on the RFQ. But that's not my issue today. School construction, when we talk about this major initiative direction, is whether we're talking about bonds. I brought that up. At some point, we've got to give, while we talk about the debt model or whatever, are we going to do without the debt model, or do it in terms of speaking with the school system and this community about bonds?
We're going to talk the debt model in detail, and I know we've got our financial team here on item 6, so we'll get into the weeds on the debt model and how we want to move forward with that. Commissioner Patel, did you have something?
Just wanted to ask if, for the facility study that we're doing, the comprehensive, is that going to include all the parks? Is that going to include all the parks and recs facilities and assets as well?
Yeah, all county facilities.
Commissioners, other questions?
I have a quick question.
Commissioner Fairclough, you recognize.
What exactly is a mental health diversion center?
That's the chair.
It was what was approved in the last budget cycle. So the Mental Health Diversion Center provides, it's like a behavioral health crisis center like you see in Greensboro and other areas. We approved it in the last budget. We set aside $30 million for that Mental Health Diversion Center.
Okay, we didn't.
We have not defined it out. The manager and staff are bringing back what that looks like as we begin to have conversations around what it is. We haven't defined anything. We just set, based on the need for mental health services in our community, and what the health, and actually what the health department identified in their SIP, I always say it wrong. SIM. In this, yeah, it was identified as a need, so the board graciously set that aside in the last budget cycle. But there's been no definition of what that is yet. Vice Chairman Jones, you're recognized for a question, please. Or comment.
Well, actually, both. In regards to the mental health, just to keep the other board members said, Behavioral Alliance, we were discussing that at the Behavioral Alliance meeting for Marshall Faircloth's concern as far as also those that are listening. That was something that we all had discussed with the Mental Health Alliance and the board members. We felt it's important for our community. And then second of all, since this says major initiative directions, although I know Manager Greer, your staff and yourself are doing a good job with the plan implementation of parking, can that be added in as an actual amount or estimate when it comes to parking? We know that that's a major issue at the court, but then also maybe in a study we can see other areas of county buildings that might be of concern to where parking overall for county buildings, and then maybe we could put a significant dollar amount to that for our buildings, to include the courthouse, of what we might want to invest with that. Improvement of parking is a major initiative. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Board, the only thing I would offer up is, I don't know if it's a major initiative, but it's going to be a project, and some of these are project-based, but we still have the future Gillespie Street lot. So I would just put that I would recommend we put that as a marker for further board discussion as needed, based on, if there's an economic development opportunity there for that site. Anything else on major initiatives? All right, we'll go ahead and move forward to item 6, where everybody's wanting to go anyway, on the debt model and tax rate.
Okay, this slide is what's the board's appetite for any kind of tax rate adjustments, an increase, a hold, or a decrease, the willingness to consider new or adjusted fees, the use of fund balance, any direction on drawdowns or reserve targets, and the debt capacity and the willingness to issue new debt.
Commissioners, I'll open it up. I think it's important that as much as we can be helpful to the manager to understand our appetite on the tax rate. I think that will help guide, correct me if I'm wrong, County Manager. And then, of course, the fund balance side, and then I'm assuming we're going to get into a picture of the debt model and walk through that. Or are we doing, what was the plan on the debt model?
The Chief Financial Officer can come up here and present those.
So let's talk through the first 3, and then we'll speak to the debt model as it was previously identified about the additional debt for the school side, and if we're going to put any placeholders for maintenance on our own buildings. I'll open it up for questions or comments. Commissioner Tyson, you're recognized.
Thank you. Speaking for myself, for item number 1, I'm always going to be in favor of a decrease, obviously. I think at a minimum or maximum for me, it would be a hold. I wouldn't have an appetite for an increase, just for me personally. On the new or adjusted fees, I have been getting some feedback from some constituents in the community about some of our fees and the escalating scale at which we've had some of those, especially in the last budget cycle. So, I think we just need to be mindful of that, especially some of the fees around solid waste. I know Amanda's not here to kind of talk about that, but I have been hearing a lot of feedback about that and some sensitivity around the escalation on that fee schedule. And then lastly, Mr. Chairman, on the use of fund balance, and I had mentioned this earlier, I don't think it's wise that we keep digging into our reserves to fund government. We have our reserves there for a reason, so we need to have that available for if we truly have some sort of crisis. So I would not be in favor of appropriating fund balance for ongoing operational dollars like we did last year, Mr. Chairman. So that's my comments on those 3 items.
Commissioners, other comments or questions? Commissioner Patel.
I echo Commissioner Tyson's sentiments. With the rate, I would like to see if we could potentially have a decrease, but a hold would be the furthest. And I've also heard a lot of concerns about our fees, specifically with the landfill. So if we could consider looking at those. And again, yeah, I don't want to, I think we appropriated a significant amount last year from general fund balance, and I wouldn't have an appetite to do that this year.
Commissioner Fairclough.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, I'll take it on.
I knew you would.
Increase, increase, hold, or decrease. Okay, I'm definitely in the camp with Mr. Tyson for decrease. We took on the bold initiative of decreasing below revenue neutral this past year, or this current year, actually, budget-wise. And I think looking forward, we've talked about and we've planned on and we're going to do the next reval in 6 years. I expect Cumberland County to keep growing for a lot of good reasons, and I expect the values to go up. I think they're going to go up pretty steadily over the next 5 years, and I think we're going to see another upward adjustment in the valuation in the reval year. And I like the increase to 49.9. It's unprecedented. It put us in some pretty elite company. And I like the idea of going to 39.9 just as much as I do 49.9. And one way to get there, I first thought about, and I threw it around jokingly a little bit, 2 cents a year for 5 years. But I think that's a little ambitious. And what I would propose, not in the form of a motion or anything regarding this year's budget, but for planning purposes, that this board look at getting to that 39.9 number this way. And that is starting not in the next budget year, which we're calling that fiscal 27, is that correct? Okay, so starting in fiscal 28, looking at a 1 cent increase for 5 years, 28, 29, 30, and 31. And then in the reval year, which would be the 6th year, try to bite off that other 5 cents, make that a planning priority, and get ourselves into even more elite.
You meant to go down, not go up.
Did I say up?
You said go up.
The value's going up. Okay.
Yeah, value's going up, but you wanted to take the rate down, okay.
Yeah, two components of tax, value and rate, okay.
Right, okay.
Value's going up, probably, we want the rates to go down, so thank you for catching that.
You're welcome.
So that would be in the reval year, we would plan on 5 cent there and get ourselves to that 39.9. And that's a planning tool. That's an ambitious goal for a board that wants to put ourselves out there in a competitive position to lure industry, as we've always talked about doing. And I think if you look at industry, they would look favorable at this, and I think taxpayers would too, since they're footing the bills for most of this.
Commissioner Adams recognized.
Well, I guess I'm not in agreement with that. It's almost, I don't understand how you say you don't want to use fund balance, but at the same time, you're not going to necessarily, I don't necessarily increase the tax rate, but at least hold it. Because everything's going up. I mean, the cost of everything's going up, and we're talking about doing some of these, even if we go into a debt model, there's going to have to be some increase. And I guess it's the revenue over what the spending is to be able to figure out whether even we can stay at 49%. The fees, I think we can look at fees, but I talk to people out in the community, the average person, the landfill fees, they're not impacted. They don't talk about that. That's not what they talk about. They do talk about the tax rate, but they don't talk about that. That's, I think, some of the commercial people that talk about that, but they use it and they ought to pay for it. It's a use kind of service and a use kind of thing. So I would not be in agreement of decreasing the tax rate. I'm at a questionable as to whole because of the revenue, and I guess we figure that out because it's been flat with some of that sales tax and some of that Avalon, that we might even have to look at a slight increase even on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioners, other questions or comments on those first three items? Vice Chairman Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to the use of fund balance and direction of drawdowns, can you elaborate somewhat on that, Manager Greer, or yourself for our listening audience, in regards to, has that been a positive or negative in the past so our community can understand that of what we're discussing with the pros and cons of that?
The use of fund balance is basically the use of our savings for the previous fiscal year. Last year, we used 12.1, and I have to go back over the years and look at it, what we've actually utilized. But the board has a policy that we can only use fund balance of 3% of the expected future year expenditures, so it's only 3%. I think last year was one of the lowest years that we used fund balance, but I had to go back and look. But there's always a savings that we carry over every year. Right now, fund balance is approximately $88.5 million, which is about 21.29% as of the end of the fiscal year. We transfer that over to the excess over to capital, so we're pretty lean. We use the fund balance only to balance the budget, not to continue ongoing expenses, but just to, in some respects, I've always looked at it as not having to have a tax rate increase. That's the only reason why we've used fund balance. But again, if that direction of the board is to not use fund balance, the recommended budget will not recommend the use of fund balance like it did last year.
Thank you, Mr. Greer.
Commissioners, before we move to the debt model, any other questions or comments? You have one alibi. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just say this. Mr. Chairman, you and I and Commissioner Patel participated in the roadside cleanup event that we had, and our rural poor residents in our county don't necessarily have trash service like the city does, and so they rely on the landfill as their primary means to dispose of their household trash. And so if you do go up on the landfill rates, then you're going to just have to pay to pick it up on the side of the road. So I just would offer that as a rebuttal to those landfill costs, because it does impact especially your low wealth rural county residents that don't have the benefit of city trash collection.
Commissioners, a couple things just to capture what's been discussed. So as part of the budget process, at some point, earlier rather than later, we see an analysis of the fees, what's been increased, what hasn't, what's potentially projected to be increased, so that the board, and that can be sent out to the board electronically just so they have it. And then the one question I have, and I guess it's specific to County Manager Greer, when we look at spending increase, decrease, what type of formula do you look at to estimate, or as you're looking at this is our spending dollar amount or cap, what formula do you look at to do that?
I try to keep it in line with the increase in revenues. So whatever the increase in property tax revenues projected, that's what our spending cap is. So if our spending cap is only 1.5%, then everyone has to get within expenses only 1.5%. If it's 3%, then that gives us some leeway. But a lot of times I try to keep it no higher than 2.5%. And then try to rebate back some of those expenses to cut, some of that excess through cuts to the departments. Again, we're early in the process. Departments have already started requests, but once we get through the individual meetings, we'll go through and fine tune some of their requests and to make sure we stay within the actual revenue projections and typically the property tax, because the sales tax is not something that we actually control.
So as a as part of that formula, the 1.5% that you look at, does that factor in inflation and population growth or decrease?
All of the above. Each year, when we start the process, I look at the revenues, look at the population growth, look at what mandated expenditures that we're going to have to incur, like retirement, things that items that come from the state and the federal government that we have to account for, any lost grants that we potentially may have and the impact of those. And then we also look at the revenue trends in the economy. The economy basically is the biggest, second biggest indicator in the unemployment rate. When we see the uptick in the unemployment rate, we know that we're going to have probably less revenues. And so it's a lot of different factors, but generally the major one is the revenue growth each year, along with inflation.
So we would anticipate that your recommendation would be somewhere between the 1.5 and 2.5%.
I don't know right now, maybe even less. I have to look at what their projected revenues are from the property taxes and the sales tax, which in motor vehicles we can't really evaluate because the state handles that. We do just a general projection. But then the biggest thing is, like I said, what the property tax revenues are going to be projected at, along with a modest look at the sales tax. Those two are the biggest drivers as to what what the budget will be.
So I think you heard consensus across that there's a hold for tax rate. That's what we'd like to see. I think that's what I heard consensus. I think there was, including Commissioner Adams. Yeah, I think all five of us, or all five of us, six of us said that. So there was consensus around that. The question is as you're modeling this, we want to provide you the flexibility. Of course, it's your budget until it's assigned to us. But as you're looking at it, is there a way to model it where you've got a hold or a decrease if there's that, or if you feel there's an increase? Is it your intent to come back to the board before you present the budget after you look at the modeling of the revenue?
And what increase in what?
Increase of the tax rate, property tax rate.
I don't think that'll be an occurrence.
So we can expect a hold or a decrease?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I will, and I've only had to increase property taxes one time in 30 years, and that time I was told to.
Understand. And again, this is so that we're setting conditions, so when we get to the manager's budget, we're walking through, we're saying these are all the things we want to do, these are all the initiatives we want to do, and these are all the things we want to do, and we want to make sure we're holding the tax rate, or in some cases, as has been requested, they'd like to see a decrease.
I think if I'm understanding, I think what I'll probably bring back at some point in time before I make the recommended budget is, and we'll probably do it prior to, is, and I'm going to use a saying that I always say, we'll have the revenues, and then we'll have the budget, and we'll cut all everything that's the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. So we just go get the baseline G.I. Joe with the baseline uniform and everything. Anything else is excess. And that's the way I budget, and that's the way all the time. So once we'll have all the requests and what that totals, and we'll probably share that with the board, and then we'll maybe ask for some guidance as to those initiatives. How do we frame those initiatives as far as dollar amount? Do we defer it? Do we cut back? Do we look at a different dollar amount? By no stretch of imagination will a budget be presented where the revenues require a tax increase.
And I think to the point earlier that was discussed around the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 type spending, so what we have to do by statute when you talk about GI Kung Fu grip stripped down. It's what we're mandated to do by law, and then, so it's not a baked-in budget once it comes to us, that we see the required statute. I think that's,
Yeah, we've started that process back in August, and we pretty much have, we call it programmatic budget, but we do have it based on tiers and what's mandated versus not what's mandated. And I'll let Deborah Shaw expand on any conversations on that.
Ms. Shaw, anything to add?
Then we will do what the board direction is.
Okay, any other questions around that or comments? I think that gives direction, so we'll go ahead and move to debt capacity, and I know, remind me, we approved that in
October.
October
25th.
October 25th, so it should, Vice Chairman Jones, you're recognized.
Since we're talking about the 4.9, 3.9, and the tax rate increase, can we make sure, I know that we discussed at the last meeting, the compromising of the 6 to 4 years and counties that were nearby, we're supposed to be getting that information coming back, as we discussed at the last
The
meeting?
reeval.
The reeval?
Okay, I'll make sure we get that out.
Okay, just a reminder, thank you.
I think it's
Did
been.
it go out?
I think it went out, but we'll make sure we get it out.
It's probably in one of my emails. Oh, okay, Joe sent it. Thank you.
So just to remind commissioners, the intent of kind of looking at the revenue or the debt model now is our major initiatives are in here. I think we want to see if there's consensus. We've heard what the school board and the actions they took and the additional ask that they've made under the new construction side. And so we want to revisit where we are and give guidance on if we want to add or modify anything as we begin to look at the debt model going into this budget cycle. Do we need to take a recess? I know we're at an hour and a half. We can take a rest. Let's take a 10-minute recess before we get into the debt model. You're fine, Vice Chairman. I was just about to call it, so we'll take a 10-minute recess.
People, just impersonating deputies and government people and sending out these things saying you need to pay this. I done got a couple of them. These older people, I get phone calls tomorrow. Turn your hand. They tell me that you can come to read stuff. I'm not. But they're so scared, and then they spoof the number. So they call back to the number.
Which may be a better advertising. I would probably go ahead and do it.
Older people, they're just scared.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Just
I ain't gonna have no better one. Yeah, I need that whole way.
All right, we'll go ahead and start. It's been about 15 minutes, a little over the time, so we'll go ahead and kick back off. So we'll come out of recess, and I'll turn it back over to County Manager Greer.
Yes, we wanted to have a short discussion on the debt model. We have Doug Carter here with Doug Carter and Associates to provide some feedback, and I'll turn it over to Robin to present. Robin?
Thank you. So the first debt model that I've pulled up is the education debt model. And if you'll recall where we left this back in October, this model includes $300 million of...
Give us 1 second. The Vice Chairman's just walking in. We'll let her get settled.
Yes, absolutely.
Part of the renovation, we're going to switch the restrooms around. Vice Chairman.
She was outside talking, I saw.
Let's go ahead. We just started the debt model.
So again, this debt model includes $300 million of repair and renovation funding for Cumberland County schools and an additional $160 million for new school construction. And the way this model is designed, we have our first issuance scheduled for 2026. Obviously, that's not going to happen this fiscal year. It doesn't appear to, or maybe, we'll see.
Could we make that larger or hide?
I was trying to keep
No offense,
Doug in there.
We want to see you, but we'd rather see the data.
Okay.
They emailed it to us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. Oh, so I can do it from here. So,
Thank you.
all right. The first issuance is the $30 million for repair renovation, and that is scheduled for 2026 in this model. And then we pick up the second issuance in 2028, and that includes $160 million for the new school construction. Up here. And then also an additional $30 million that year for additional repair renovation monies. And then after that, we go into the repair renovation money at a $60 million level. The third tranche of that is in 2030, and then the next one is in 2032, 2034, and then 2036. So that's the way the model is initially designed.
You need to move it up, yeah, there you go, because you were talking and,
So that is the schedule right now. But as we spoke earlier, Cumberland County Schools has requested an additional $150 million for new schools. And so we need to kind of get your guidance on how you would like for us to proceed with that and the models. Right now, just to give you a reminder, out of the general government model, we are transferring money into this education model to fund at the level that we currently have in the model of $460 million. So we're transferring about $281 million into the education model, and we're transferring about $204 million into the water sewer model. So a little over $500,000 of transfers out of general government to make this model and the water sewer model whole. So again, we've got Doug on the line, and he is ready to chime in.
Doug, anything you want to add before we open up for some questions from commissioners?
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Commission. Can you hear me?
We can, and thank you for being here.
Sure, happy to be here. It's a very rainy, ugly day in Charlotte. I don't know about where you are.
It's good weather.
We have, I'd just like to say one thing in general. I think it was a great decision made by the County Commission back in October to add a 3% growth to the resource that largely funds the school model and the general model, and is giving resources to the water and sewer model while we're trying to figure out what revenues there will be in that model. So the other thing I would say to you in general, members of the commission, as you'll remember, the timing of when the money is spent out of the model is extremely important. And that's why, as Robin has shown you, we have essentially tried to make this a planned and syncopated process of when we spend the school's money. It obviously can't be spent all in 1 year. So I think what I would add to this is the 3% growth has been built into these models, and it made the models healthier and has actually increased some capacities in some places. So to the extent that we need to look at another $150 million to add to these models, we'll have to look at timing and to what extent additional resources will be needed to fund that $150 million.
Okay, Manager Greer, anything, or staff, anything else to add before I open it up to commissioners?
Commissioners, last week we met with the superintendent and the finance director, Jay Tolan, regarding the $30 million. They were under the assumption that we may issue that debt this year. Likelihood would be probably moved out if done in fiscal in 26, probably fiscal year 26, 27. We will have to look at it to bring it forward. Then they will have to have contracts in place. I think a better discussion regarding the $30 million should happen after we had the discussion at the agenda session about general obligation bonds versus limited obligation bonds, and the pros or cons versus the size and complexity of any future debt model, debt issuance. Outside of that, we haven't put in the $150 million into this debt model because it hasn't been approved by the board, and we're still evaluating that additional request from schools. We'll bring up the total debt model for schools to $610 million.
Commissioners, we'll go ahead and open it up. Again, we're looking to provide direction to the staff on changes to the debt model, or as we're planning on the budget side so they can do planning. So for example, if we want to see this 150, we know we don't have the planning timeline with the school system right now, but if we want to look at this additional ask that's been made in parallel planning, then this would be the time versus we're not talking about changing the debt models. We'll do that when we get to the budget cycle. So I'll open it up. Vice Chairman Jones, and I'll go to Commissioner Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, Mr. Greer, during your meeting, I don't know if it will or will not take impact. So the question is, with the recent discussion about the schools, some certain schools that will be closing and may not, will that impact any of this as far as what we will provide to them and what we will not, or did you all have that conversation? It's just basically, lately, of course, our community is concerned about that of, I guess, a lot of schools may be closing and even that of year-round. So would that affect any of this negotiation of that of what we are trying to support them in fundings?
Right now, we just discussed what the schools, Cumberland County Schools Board approved in their resolution, and I think it was 9 different points in the resolution. We just discussed it in general. We didn't talk about what schools would be closed, consolidated. We didn't feel like that was appropriate at the staff level to discuss. We are cognizant of it, And and I think one of the tenets of or one of the statements in the resolution says that any schools that are closed will be transferred to the county for like $1 in that. But outside of that, we didn't discuss anything regarding the actual consolidation piece of the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Thank you, Madam Chairman. We always just like to be transparent with our community and allow them to know that we are on top of things.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Tyson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So earlier last year, this board had a joint meeting with our school board where we went over the infrastructure deficiencies that have long-term plagued our school organization. And one of the asks that we had out of that process was that the school board would look at a facility utilization study and look to what their plan was going to be in terms of what facilities they were going to keep, which ones they weren't, and come back to this board. It was my understanding, Mr. Chairman, that we put this in our debt model really as a planning tool last year so that we could provide some latitude for our partners at the Board of Education to kind of frame this up together. And so, again, I just want to reiterate my previous comment. From what I understand, they have worked on this comprehensive, holistic, consolidated plan that they've been working on. They're going to bring their recommendation for that plan holistically back to this board. And so I would just ask, as that moves through, and I'm not sure when it's coming, but I think it would probably impact this budget season, that we make adjustments to this model based on that information we receive and what action this board takes. That would be my comment.
So in speaking with the chairwoman of the board, I think there's an intent, like we did last year in the spirit of collaboration, to have that joint meeting where they can update us, provide us a resolution based on timings that probably wouldn't happen until late March or early April, based on lots of things happening right now. Plus, they needed to finalize their process, and they had some things they have to do by law, and so they wanted to make sure nothing changed and there wasn't any adjustments to the plan that they put in place. So I would anticipate them coming out. I think, to your comment earlier around parallel planning, I think the question for this board is, from a planning standpoint, do we want to go ahead and lean in and plan towards that additional 150 above what we planned previously? So as we're doing a planning model, if we think we're going to move additional dollars based on the request for new construction, then this would be the opportunity to help staff, have staff model that around, and we can always back off of it if it changes. So I'll open it up to other comments. Go ahead, follow up.
If I can just have a follow-up to that, and I'm good with that, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to get that information and know what their plan is before, just because, I mean, they could come back and ask us for $300 million, and then that's something we have to consider. So I just would like to see what it is that they're coming back to us with.
Which plan?
For the new school construction.
Okay, so their intent is to brief us on that, but also give us a resolution in line with what they voted on. So, for us, we've allocated $160 million. They've asked for $150 more million, so it's $310 million on new construction. So that's the placeholder. Do we want to put that placeholder in our debt model and then have those conversations with the school board if we need details on timing and all that, which our staff will need? The question, really, the bigger question, the 30,000-foot question for what I think we need today, and I believe what the manager thinks we need today, and I don't want to speak for him, is do we want to look at that debt model at what their current ask is? I'll go to Commissioner Patel and then back to Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it'd be wise for us to go ahead and include that, at least from, if we add the 150 on top, that they may ask for new construction, and model it out so we can kind of understand how it's going to affect our long-term plans.
Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure, and I don't want to confuse the community nor myself be confused. I know we're talking about that we funded the 160 million. Now, this other 150 million that was set aside for E. Smith is specifically for that, or are we talking about another $150 million?
No, so they've come back and have now said.
Additional?
Additional 150, so there's 310 million, which they'll do new construction across 6 different schools, including E. Smith.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, the community's kind of sensitive on that. So they mean included that 150 that was set aside for E. Smith, they want an additional 150, correct?
There was $160 million that was set aside, that we set aside in our debt model for new construction. What they've come back with is an additional $150 million to cover 6 schools for new construction, and that includes E. Smith in their ask. So they've asked for specific schools as part of that new construction dollars. Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of putting it into this debt model. I've already talked about the school bond issue. I think that's where it needs to go. And I think 300 million that they, on new construction, all this, 300 million is just a drop in the bucket for what they really need. They need close to 700 million to $1 billion to be able to do this community right in terms of their school system. And I think that we just piecemealing it by doing that. I don't think that, and I thought the 160 that we've already got includes the E. Smith, not the new construction. That's the way it was in the debt model in the old, and I thought that's what we were already had that aligned for. And this additional 150 for whatever new schools they want to be able to do for a total of 310. But I think that we just need to, and when we're looking at that, not put it in this debt model, but make a decision. If we decide not to do the bond issue, then I guess we look at where we get the additional 150 from, and that might be here. But I don't think that that's where we need to put it in for this placeholder here.
So, County Manager, when we're talking about a debt model, we're talking about different vehicles to do that. Whether it's a general obligation bond or limited obligation bond, it's still paid out of the debt model. So it's just the cost of the debt will be less depending on whether you do a general obligation or limited obligation bond. So the debt model is the debt model. The how we get the debt, either how we bond the debt is we're going to be paying for it out of our debt model.
Correct.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether it does. Let me finish so I can make sure I clarify. The debt model is going to be serviced whether we service a general obligation bond or we service a limited obligation bond. So if we want to do $1 billion in bond, we still have to have a debt model that can service that debt. It will be at a lower rate if we do a general obligation bond and not a limited obligation bond. But that isn't the conversation now, is how much money are we willing to set aside in a debt model for whatever type of bond that we're going to pay against.
Right. But there's enough money in the debt model now to do that without having to do that. We just, so there's really no reason to be able to do that. You just got to figure out what we're going to do in terms of when you start all of this debt, because we're not looking to start this debt for another couple of years at the way it's looking.
That's the timing of the debt, but there's not $1 billion in this debt model.
Well, that's if we do
Not
a
in
$1
education.
billion bond. I mean, we may not do $1 million bond, it's whatever it is, but.
Yeah, I guess I don't, we're not talking about the vehicle by which we're going to bond.
Right.
We're talking about how much do we want to set aside in our debt model, because those dollars are set aside before we look at any operational cost at the county level. So we're setting that money aside to pay our debt before we look at increases at the operational level. So it's a question of, do we want to, in planning, look at these additional dollars that we know are going to be part of our debt model? Just like we asked earlier about the deferred maintenance that we have for our buildings, as the Vice Chair asked about the government services, that's a piece of the total dollar amount of debt that we're going to need to understand that we need to set aside so we can service that debt. That's the conversation. Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We definitely, 300 million is a good place to start, but I think we're all in agreement that we're talking about 6 schools here, whether it's E. Smith and other schools as well, no doubt, the goal is to try to make sure that these schools are sufficient and well quality, such as Grays Creek and Jack Brett. So it is going to, whether it's from bonding or somewhere else, it probably is going to, no doubt, let's be realistic here, 6 schools, and we want everything to be equivalent so that every zip code can be just as sufficient as our 2 top schools as far as, because they are, newer, and so that does come with that of benefits to more modern. So 300 million is a good start, but we definitely should be setting aside, because realistically it's going to cost more than that. We're talking about six new schools to be, up to part sufficient. Building rates have went up, and I think that's the primary goal of what I've been hearing in the community. People want to be able to be like, it doesn't matter, I live out in West Fayetteville near Jack Brett. It's a great school, and that's a blessing, but everyone doesn't live out there, and everyone doesn't live in Grays Creek. But the goal is of the community, they want us to figure this out and work with the school board so that whether you're on the north side, west side, east side, everybody has a really nice school like those 2 schools. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So the question comes back, do we want to make any modifications to the debt? Do we want, from a planning standpoint, we're not adjusting the debt model right now, but from a planning standpoint, is there a dollar amount we want to adjust? We currently have in our school debt model, what dollar amount?
We have
460.
460 million.
Okay, so do we want to increase that school debt model by the 150 that we know we're going to have the ask from the school, or another amount? If we want to increase that and say we want to spend $800 million total, and that's a planning figure, then we can do that. This is a marker we put down last time for the deferred maintenance as well as the new construction. So 1 is the school. I'm coming, Commissioner Patel. Second, do we want to add anything to the general government? And third, do we want to add anything to infrastructure? So and then we have the Crown as well, but that's a separate taxing, so we won't go there. But we have 3 core areas that we need to look at. Because then from that, it will drive the bonding side of it and how we actually get the money and how we package it. So the question now is, what do we want, if any, do we want to increase for planning purposes only, for the budgeting purposes, the school debt model? Is there consensus to add in the 150, or do we want to add more than that? Commissioner Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think from a planning perspective, if we're anticipating the school system to ask for the 150, we should go ahead and add the 150 million into the debt model. But if there is a thought of looking at a higher number, maybe staff can give us guidance on what that number could be before it starts to get a little irresponsible on the operating portion of our budget.
I agree.
So, Commissioner Fairclough?
I agree with Commissioner Adams. I think we've got enough in there for now. It's going to be 2 years before they even start spending on it.
Commissioner Tyson, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess that's my point. We just had Doug tell us the key to this is when the issuance needs to happen and when that money is drawn out. And so the model, all it is a planning tool.
That's right.
That's all it is. We're just using this to plan. And so I guess for me, if I don't see that holistic plan, and I respect what you're saying, and this is what they're going to ask for, but I want to see it broken down to where they're like, this is when we need this funding, this is how it's going to work, so that when we come back to Doug, he can tell us, hey, this issuance, this drawdown, this is what you can sustain, and this is what's reasonable. Whether, to your point, is LOBs or GEOs, doesn't really matter yet.
That's right.
What matters is, when are we anticipating the issuance? When are they drawing it out? And what can the model sustain based upon what they're asking us for? And that's my thing is, we can throw whatever number you want to. If you want to put $1 billion in there, that's fine. But we need to know the answer to those questions and that request, and then make a decision as a board so we know what we can afford.
So, to that, I think you heard the staff say they've met with the school system. They could give some preliminary timelines on their estimates. So if you wanted to increase the 150, based on what their planning timeline is that they've discussed with the manager or will discuss with the manager, then that would give you the planning factor on the dollars. But you're still going to look at the total dollar amount.
Right.
But yes, you would have to have, to Doug's point, the periods by which we issue. And that was a big change that we did last year, is we actually talked through those issuances because we were able to move some money around based on when they would be issued. Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in favor. They've already had discussions, the superintendent along with our manager, so they're already telling us they want another $150 million. And then for Doug to be able to, do diligently do what he does to figure things out, configuration of what will be what, I'm in favor, since you stated this is for planning, to go ahead and add in the other $150 million, so then he can at least see what he's working with if we're doing this for planning services, as well as if we're going to fully fund the school system, which we did, and we're having this partnership, collaboration, negotiations, and they've already stated they need $150 more. I do agree with Commissioner Tyson as well as everyone else here, and Commissioner Adams. No doubt they'd have to come back with some itemized information, but if we already know that that's what they're in need of, and we're stating we're Tier 1 and we want to try to effectively provide for our schools and all that, I don't want to get into that, ties into, as we know, the better the education school system, the better to draw in other quality of life or economics. So I'm definitely in favor, this is for planning, to add that in so we can see what it's going to look like. We already know what it looks like without it in there. But now, we've asked our manager to go do negotiations, discuss, see what they need. You've already met with the chair, so they've told us what they're in need of, and I agree with you, we need some itemized things, but I'd like to see what it looks like of what we can afford and can't, what we're capable of doing. I don't know that without you all adding it in. It's just my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I'm giving leeway because this is a key issue, and I know we're bumping up to the 4 o'clock, and we'll be respectful of that. But no, please go ahead, Commissioner Adams. I wouldn't cut you off. I just said I want to give leeway here. This is a conversation.
I think we're putting the cart before the horse. It's just like every department that's going to come and ask the manager for some money. They're going to ask for more than he's going to give them. Just because they asked me for 160 without knowing, they hadn't presented anything to us. And so I'm not willing to stick something in here saying, okay, because once we stick it in there, they're going to say you gave us this $160 million, and that's what's going to be out in the community. And so, I think they come present us with what you got. That was the whole consolidation part, that they were going to bring it back. And we can look at it and look at staff, look at it to determine, is that what we want to put in this debt model at this particular point in time? I know it's for planning, but you plan on being, just because you ask for it, my kids ask for a whole lot of stuff, don't mean they get it. But it's the same thing with these tax dollars. So I think we need to, and I'm not saying we wait till June to do it. I think we get that report, look at it, and we can always stick it in the debt model at a later time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Manager Greer, as far as timing on this, I know y'all are in the budget process, and if we allocate additional dollars and that switches the fund model, that impacts the operational dollars that you have to spend directly. So, in our discussions, getting at a budget workshop, a planning number that we can always move, it's easier to move it if you have a dollar and understand the will of this board. I would think you, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, when you would want this planning dollar, when you'd want the planning around the debt model, because it's ultimately the number you're going to have to work with.
Well, let me do real quick. If we want to put the 160 in there, we put 160 million in there and just put 160 million in there and don't dedicate it to anything, I think we can.
That's all we're doing.
Well, no, because we're talking about this school issue. I'm just saying, I know how people are. And if we say they ask for 150 or 160, so we put 160 in there, they think that's their money. If we saying we just going to add to the debt model $160 million or $200 million, that's fine. I just don't want it allocated without having looked at all the other stuff that the school system says.
And County Manager Greer, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I apologize. Go ahead.
Doug is coming on the 12th. We're just having presented as part of his presentation on limited general obligation versus limited. And we'll know what the planning number is for capacity then. That'll be the easiest thing to do.
The 12th of March?
12th of March. Because we're going to talk about bonds and the type of bonds and the configuration of bonds. Part of that would be knowing what the true capacity is.
But
I would just say whatever the capacity is going to be based on 15% of our general fund expenditures. So last year was $400 million, so that's roughly $60 million a year.
correct.
So anything above that, the budget will have to increase, and if the budget decreases, the debt service that we can afford and that the LGC will approve will decrease, and if I can remember correctly, about 5% per each $1 million that the budget decreases. So it's good to know, but we already have a cap of what we know the debt service that we can afford. It's going to be 15% or what we can, 15% of whatever the general fund expenditures are for each year.
But the 15% cap is an LGC cap.
Yes. You can't issue debt. They will not let you, and Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, for the general fund, general model, you can't issue debt that's over 15% of your general fund expenditures. The debt service, the annual debt service.
That was a policy, Mr. Manager, for many years, because there's a lot of issuance for school bonds in many urban counties like your own. They have evaluated that some, so bottom line is I think we have to look at the limit of what we can afford in the budget, and I think that number's a fair one. But I think we have some leeway.
Vice Chairman Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when you say that number is a fair number, are you talking about the additional 150 that they're asking for is a fair number? 15%? But for listening audience and even myself, layman's term, what would be the dollar amount of that 15%? Let's just break it down to simplify it for myself and the community. So 15%, what would be that dollar amount, since you said we can't go?
Our budget
60
last
million,
year
how much?
was 60 million. Last year, our general fund budget expenditures were approximately $400 million. 15% of that would be $60 million
So
per year.
per year, we'd be able to add $60 million.
So if you said technically, Doug said there's some leeway against what's that. If you said 15% and divided 16 by 15%, that would give you what the debt issuance would be over a period of time. Now, I would say we probably just need to, it would be better off if we just hit a work session regarding this matter, since it's going to be such a critical issue regarding the budget.
Commissioner Tyson.
So at 60 million a year, how much debt can we service with that?
Depends on which vehicle.
It depends on which issue. I have to, the rate and everything. Years, 60, 20. I don't want to say that number. Because if I say the number, I think the public will hold us to it.
So when
But
we
we could service the 150 over
yes.
That's what I was
with
gonna
comfortably.
ask.
Would you say that?
That's what I want to know.
I think we can, but I haven't run the numbers. We haven't run the numbers. I don't want to say that that's a comfortable number with all the other needs that we have.
Thanks,
Special
Commissioner.
meeting on this.
So it looks like on the 12th, we're going to get I guess we're going to delay this conversation to the 12th is what I'm hearing? Is that what you'd prefer? So you don't want guidance on this until the 12th of March?
Yes.
Okay. Vice Chairman, go ahead.
Is there any way that we can give direction to find out what the numbers are to be presented on the 12th?
That's what they're going to do.
Oh, okay.
They're going to give us debt model scenarios.
Okay.
Commissioner.
$400 million.
Is what number?
It's a 60 at 60 years. I mean, $400 million.
For how long?
Depending on if you're doing
Depending,
lobs or geos.
and it'll change if you're doing lobs or if you're doing geo, because the interest rate And there's a thought that you can only issue debt over 20 years, but that may have changed too.
If we want to move it to the 12th, or we can have a detailed discussion, I think what you're hearing, though, I would say there's probably consensus that we want to look at additional dollars from a school system standpoint. But we can have those conversations on the 12th if we want to get into the weeds on the 12th. I'm fine with that. I would just be prepared to have a vigorous discussion around that so that we can give you a planning dollar, because what I don't want is what we did last year, and that is we came into a budget with an outdated debt model, and then the board adjusted the debt model during the budget process, which I know made it very difficult on the staff. And so I want to be respectful of the staff and give you enough time to allow the board to provide you guidance as we drive into that. Because, board, I will tell you, does anybody else have any questions on the debt model? Commissioner Tyson.
One more question, Mr. Chairman. I guess when we put this in as a planning tool, the O&M as well as new school construction was considered. So if the concern is the amount of debt that we can take on, we already know what the O&M number would be on an annualized basis on their entire plan without the facility reduction. So could the O&M, based on that reduction, not have a portion of it being pay and go, as opposed to trying to put it all in the debt model?
When they brief the debt model, that's it. Pay-go is part of it. It's when the debt's drawn down, how we do it. If you
No. I mean on some of those O&M requests, we pay cash for them as opposed to drawing out debt.
I think that's part of the entire model that you have to look at. We've got several pay-go models that we use in school, in all three models, in the school model, in the general government model, and in the water model. If you recall, there's several pay-go. That's part of the, we pay cash versus leverage versus debt against it. And that's where we look to Doug to make, in our finance team, to make those recommendations, just like we saw in another board last night, a different way to look at things.
Yes.
All right, any other questions or comments on the debt model? We're going to move to the 12th. Board, I will also, two things that I just want to reiterate. One, we don't have a number when we look at general government. Our manager is going to do a look at all our facilities, and we don't have a number on what that deferred maintenance on our facilities are. And so we need to be thinking potentially about how we're paying for that, debt, cash, whatever, and I think that should be factored in. The other thing that I will add in is historically, we have as a board, we have a requirement to fund our community colleges' facilities by general statute. We have historically done that in piecemeal by cash. I would also request before that 12th meeting, if it's okay with the board, that we go ahead and reach out to our community college partner and get an estimate, a dollar amount from a facility side, so we can begin to factor that in. So I know they come in brief, but I could see that being part, really, as we look at funding schools. They are a higher ed school, but we have a legal obligation to fund them as well, if that's okay, board. All right. Anything else on the debt model? We went way over. We're going to try to move through these other items, but it was good, I think, moving it to the 12th. And I apologize, Commissioner Adams, you won't be there, but we'll make sure we
can get it in advance. I can look at it in advance and email whatever questions I may have.
Please do.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Thank you.
County Manager Greer, we'll go ahead and move forward.
Next was, we're seeking direction on cost of living and market adjustments, the staffing growth expectations to expand, hold, or reduce, and vacancy rates and lapse salaries. Currently, our living wage for 2 adults, both working with 1 child, is $20.03. 1 adult with 0 children is $21.49. Our lapse salaries as of today is an additional $5.2 million, and let's remember during the budget, during the adopted budget, we have already backed $16 million on lapse salaries. New position requests that we are seeing. There's 13 general fund at approximately $1 million. And there's 3 position requests in other funds at approximately $267,000. Our vacancy rate as of this past Monday was 15.64%. We'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, I'll open it up for questions. Vice Chairman Jones, and I'll go to Commissioner Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are these full-time or part-time? Do you know where these departments are in regards to the new positions? And are they full or part-time positions?
I believe they are full-time, but let me check.
I know our full-time positions have benefits of health insurance, which is very important in retirement. And I should know this answer, but I don't. Do we give benefits for our part-time workers? Does anybody know?
It depends on how they are categorized.
Thank you. And that's always important because, of course, when people are looking for employment, that also equivalates and helps balance out their salary when you
Does
are
my staff
provided
have
with benefits.
I cannot say. Okay, thank you.
There's 11 full-time and 1 part-time.
Curiosity, if you don't know, that's fine with the positions. I just want to.
Part-time is in public and PIO. We ask for multimedia content specialist.
I need full-time people.
The full-time, 1 was in facilities management, 2 is in board of elections, 4 is emergency services, 1 in justice services, 1 in the health department, 1 was mental health other,
Okay.
and 1 was in veterans services, and 1 was in public utilities.
Thank you, and it's good to know. You said 4 was in our emergency.
Yes, ma'am, would you like to know what they requested?
I mean, you can go on and tell us, but it's good to know that we're adding on. You didn't have to, but I mean, since you're right there.
Okay, well, 2 of those positions are IT support specialists, and 1 was a supervisor, and then you have a deputy fire marshal, and then 1 department communications and outreach coordinator.
And thank you. Again, we'd like to let our community know, that we're making increases in those areas that provide public service. Thank you so much.
I'll just remind, this is before it comes to the county manager, too.
Yes, yes, this is just what we're
Hopefully
seeing.
they'll get approved.
This is what
Trying to
we're
help you out there, County Manager Greer.
Well, those are definitely good service positions that we need to provide services for our community.
Go to Commissioner Patel.
Thank you. Is the 15.6% vacancy for every department, including the sheriff's office, DHS?
That's for all the departments, yes, sir.
Commissioners, other questions? Commissioner Tyson.
Thank you. So we had gotten briefed on the request with the 10-year career development plan from our SO.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to look to have some recommendation from staff and our county manager on, after reviewing that, what potential options we would have for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this living wages, where are you all getting that specific number from? Is that coming from the state or just across?
That is a website that is called Mint Living Wage.
Okay.
That is what Wake County uses also. I usually call them and check to make sure what theirs is, what Mecklenburg County is. And so that's what the consensus that people use.
So unemployment, I guess, does that rate the state or whatever, figures that out for them? I was just wondering where they pulled that
I'm not
that
sure.
average from.
It's just called the Mint Living Wage.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Adams.
And you may or may not have this, but 20.03 is the living wage and 21.49. How many of our employees are below that?
I do not.
I didn't see, we could
No.
do it at some point, that would be HR maybe or whatever, but that factors into some conversation, if we can get that number.
Commissioners, other
Kathy can look it
questions
up.
or comments on this? So two questions, or a question from me. Is there a projection on increase in benefits based on insurance costs? And do we have that number And then is there a cost of living percentage that we are beginning to look at, or a standard baseline?
The health insurance will come on the 12th of March. And then we haven't made a determination on cost of living adjustment because, again, you got to look at it in totality. We have $1 million right there, $1.2 million, $1.3 million in new requests. I know the retirement rate is going up for all employees, so we have to look at all of that before we make a determination or recommendation on what the any compensation adjustment for as the cost of living increase would be.
Is there an estimated, looking at it like a 3-year average or 5-year average, that would just give us an idea of what that potentially would be historically?
Of what the COLAs have been historically?
So the COLA's one, but then also, we look at the increase to our benefits side, retirement side.
Retirement has been increasing, I believe approximately 1.2%, correct me if I'm wrong. And then this year, and we are in the process of bringing in the salaries. And so we're not there yet. But right now, when at the strategic work session, I was estimating about 1.7 million increase in the retirement. And like I said, that is just quick, and that was just a quick written. We're bringing in the salaries as we speak and trying to clean up the data.
Okay.
And the average increases for employees over the last 3 years has been 2.25%. We did 2. That's without the compensation plan adjustment, but just baseline cost of living. 2 first year, 2023, 2024, 2.5, and last year 4. Over the last 3 years, about 2.25 to 2.5%, roughly.
All right, thank you. Vice Chairman Jones, and then we're going to move on to the next topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, and you did an excellent job, I'm glad that you discussed that, you and your staff. Mr. Greer, I know that as you stated, I think it was about 3 years ago, when you did a study to see where we were at when it comes to public health, social services, and just all the areas in general across that are competitive with salaries from other counties. And if possible, I would like to see, although we've had increases, no doubt everything else, cost of living's increased. Can we do another study like that? I know that when you did that particular study, it was able to show what a social worker was making in equivalent, counties and even the sheriffs, just to make sure we're still in that competitive marginal area, because it's been a while since we've done that. And I know that you are and your staff looking into certain areas of increases, but is it possible that we could have one of those studies done again, just to see where we're at, to make sure we're leveraging in a competitive way with the market that's out there, like Hornet County and different people?
Yeah, I would say we would have to do that in fiscal year 27. It's not something we could probably do right now, unfortunately, because of the timing of the budget.
Okay.
But it would have to be something we have to address in fiscal year 20, I guess, planning for fiscal year 20. We could do it in fiscal year 27, but we would have to budget for the actual cost of it. And any implementation would have to probably go in fiscal year 2028.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Tyson, then we're going to move forward.
One quick alibi, Mr. Chairman. I know you're ready to go on this. Ms. Shaw, I know we had talked in the past about some of our departments that had historically higher vacancy rates and kind of the attrition rate annually that we've seen in those departments.
Yes, sir.
Meaning, let's say we're funding 10 positions, but historically they've only ever filled 5. Would you be able to provide us, or County Manager Greer, would you be able to provide us some information kind of around that historical and see if there's maybe some adjustments we would want to make to those vacancies? Because if we're doing that on an annualized basis and those positions aren't getting filled anyway, my opinion would be there may be some opportunity there, but that's just,
We can provide any information that the board requests.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move forward to item 8, community and outside funding. And board, we're going to try to wrap this up in the next 15 minutes. Went over what we had discussed going. I want to be respectful of everybody's time and what they have going on. So we'll go ahead and move to community funding. Again, we really just want to look at, go ahead, Ms. Shaw.
Okay, community and outside funding, seeking direction on the level of outside agency funding. If there's any specific programs that the board is wanting to prioritize or evaluate. I will, the Unigrant, we kicked off the community funding with the Unigrant software that opened up on December the 16th. It ended January the 31st. And our ACMs and budget staff are in the process of scoring, and that is due March the 13th. Right now, we have 31 applications and at approximately $3.8 million. I do have a question. I'm getting some questions regarding, does the nonprofit have to have an audit, or will it be acceptable to have a review? And I'll let the county manager discuss.
I'm flexible with either one, and that if they have the baseline is at least they have a review. If they have an audit, that they submit the audit. A review is just an audit, a slimmed down version of an audit by a different name. And any review that's done, the CPA has to do just as much work, same amount of work, to make sure that the balances are correct. There's some more verification that's required on an audit, but typically most of the time, if you do a review of a financial statement, you have to say that there's no material modification to the report, and therefore, in order for you to say that there's no material modification, you basically have to do a slimmed down audit. So I would say if someone submitted either a review or audit, then we accept that. And we have a resident CPA on our board, and I'll let him get his feedback also.
And we are specifically talking about the community funding. So those are what's in this line item in our budget. We're not talking about the impact grants or anything like that. I know you just talked a little bit about the grant process. I just want to make sure we're clear. It's a community funding.
Yes, this is community
process.
funding.
Okay. I will open it up to Commissioner Adams.
And I'll tell you, and I guess we experienced this here, it's hard to get those audits, and I'm telling you, especially some of those nonprofit audits. But I do believe that if you're giving $1 million or more away, they ought to have an audit. So my question would be, based upon the dollar amount, could we do a dollar amount of this and above, you do an audit, because you're getting that much, and those that are less than that, do a slim down? I don't know, I'm just asking the accounting people.
If that's the I would give a recommendation.
Yeah.
250,000 and below a review, anything above 250,000, you have audit.
Okay.
Is that, I mean, I think that's kind of reasonable. It's hard to get up. It's hard.
We'll go around. Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that we provide fundings for several very suitable organizations, but I would like for us to take into consideration, especially the staff opportunities. Many times, we get complacent and comfortable, and we are funding the same people over and over, which is great. They've showed their establishment with the community, but I do want that to be in consideration. Opportunity for others that also are established in the community that, they have everything in order, but they haven't had the opportunity for some of these fundings. So just being mindful of that when we have these applications that come in. I know when I look in the list, several times people have been getting funded from the county 15, 20 years. Other people, it's not that they're not doing the work. I think that sometimes, we just kind of get complacent with the partners we have, but then it's important to be able to establish those other partnerships as well with several other entities that have been around for a long time too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll say this, and I know our county attorney's here, and he can opine on this. It's my understanding if this board gives $1 to an outside organization based on general statute, that they automatically have to agree that they are subject to a potential state audit, is my understanding. So if they get $1 from this board, that's the law. So I guess my thing is, if we want to make sure that we're communicating expectations very clearly, I'm not saying that any of them would be audited, but by requiring the full financial audit as this money is given out, they're already prepared should that become an eventuality. And it's my understanding, and again, the county attorney can opine on this, that audit process doesn't necessarily have to be initiated by us. It could be initiated by the state. Is that correct?
The statute actually addresses being subject to a state audit, yes.
Subject.
It's not, yes.
So I would just give that for consideration. If they're subject to a state level audit anyway, why wouldn't you want them to have a full financial audit that they can provide that already gives that verification? And it gives us a layer of protection as well. So that's just my 2 cents.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner, Mr. CPA, Commissioner Fairclough?
Well, yeah, I agree with county manager, a review is substantially less in scope than an audit. It would also be substantially less in cost than an audit. So if you're giving away a lot of money, you could expect to hold them more accountable, obviously. The state audit, they can do what they want to anytime they want to with public money, so that's always a specter. But I think just beyond that, probably 30 out of these 31 applications, you probably got 10 of them that's even auditable, perhaps. That's because of the lack of personnel and the lack of separation of duties and other things. And if we can accept a review, that's fine with me. But I think if we're looking at $3.8 million, there's my opinion on the tax rate right there that I need. But aside from that, I think we ought to set a cap on how much of public money we're going to give away, so to speak, and in alignment with what the county attorney's instructions always are, we have to look at what but what the people are getting for the money that we pay out, and it needs to be something that the county would probably have to be doing if these nonprofits weren't doing. So we need to make sure that we're staying on top of that, because these numbers, I've seen them rise and fall over the years, and so probably putting a cap on it and then vetting to make sure that we're getting the bang for the buck as far as county services that we need.
Vice Chairman Jones, and then we're going to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with everything that all the other commissioners have said here, but we also want to be mindful. I'm just going to use as an example what we don't want to see happen. Speaking of services, is this, as we all know, Salvation Army was around for years, and we were not in partnership with them. It's a good thing that is now being corrected, but we just got so complacent of saying, well, someone else is doing it, and we didn't give any fundings, and then when they shut down, everybody's like, oh, we've got the county and city, we're already helping to provide for them, of which, we do learn from issues, and so now we've moved better in the right direction. So I think that what we're all saying is correct, but we do want to be mindful that when we're looking at these applications that we don't put our community in that particular situation again. I just use that as a good example because, it is good that we do have a partnership with them now. We didn't have one before until a crisis happened. So just making sure that when we are funding individuals, definitely are these services that need to be used year-round. And, all services, backtrack on that, all services need to be used year-round, but that have supported that fundings of the county, which ones are going to be priority to use for everyone. So just no doubt, if you're unhoused, major crises, Salvation Army, that was a very good gesture to try to go in that direction with them. And hopefully that'll be a continuous partnership so that we don't end up in crisis mode for our community again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So as far as direction to the staff, a couple things. So it sounds like you want the audit or not. I think the manager's laid out an option. I think there's consensus for us to concur with the manager, so that gives you some framework there. The historic policy, correct me if I'm wrong, either Ms. Shaw or Manager Greer, has been, you look at the funding request, you look at what, if an applicant had submitted the prior year and they're automatically moved forward to the existing year, and then there's a screening process for the other applicants and they either move forward or not move forward. Has that been the process?
Yes, sir. In the past, we have never introduced any new community funding. It was up to the board.
So, board, I guess the question would be, do we want, but we get a list of them all, so we
Yes,
can move them forward.
yes, sir,
if we
you
want.
do.
Okay. So the next question is do you need a cap in that area or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a recommendation on the cap?
I went back and did some averages, and this,
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying. We can set the cap, I mean.
I'm just getting a recommendation from the staff because again, we're trying to
Okay.
provide planning, and this is one of the
Yeah.
things that I heard that we'd like to see some framework around this community. So before we go to questions, let me just get a recommendation, and then we can decide whether we do it or
No,
not.
that's fine.
I went back and looked at that average from FY21 to FY24, and my staff, correct me if I'm wrong, was an average, we contributed $435,798 for community funding out of the general fund. This is general fund community funding. Now, some of those were moved over to ARP dollars. For FY25, it was $254,000, and of course, that was funded through ARP. Some of the people that had requested community funding that were funded through the ARP, so it did not come through community funding. And then last year, we funded approximately $1 million.
So do you have a recommendation?
I don't know anything until, because I've not pulled
Okay.
the revenues and all that's not in.
We'll follow the same process, and the board can move through that they want to move unless there's consensus to put a cap. Go to Commissioner Tyson and then Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess for me, it's got to be a case-by-case basis. If we've got these 31 applications, then I think we need to review that. But if the manager's saying that he's willing to accept a review or an audit, then I think those responding organizations need to tell us if they plan to do a review or an audit. Because I myself have some concerns. If we're giving money to an organization and affordability of an audit is the key issue on whether or not they can get funding, that has concerns for me over the solvency of that organization. And so if that's the issue is, well, the audit costs too much, okay, then what does their full financial picture look like anyway? And do we need to be concerned about that as a board? So I would just ask, I wouldn't propose a cap, or we have 31 applications, show us the applications ranked by staff and let us see, and if they're planning to do a review, I think I want to know that before I come to a conclusion.
So the historic, go ahead, Michelle.
I will say this, I think there's only maybe 3 that has asked, and it's because the CPA is no longer doing audits. He's going to do reviews. He sent a letter saying a review was very intense, and I didn't know, so I took it to the county manager. So it's not like there's a whole slew, it's just like, I think maybe 3.
Vice Chairman Jones and then Commissioner Adams, and we need to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my 2 concerns are, again, I'm sure these are all reputable organizations. However, I noticed that you stated that if you get approved one year, and automatically the next year, you're more than likely to get those fundings. So is there some type of follow-up process to see from year to year? And again, the reason I state that is because if they're already mathematically locked in, is there any time frames? When does anyone else get a new opportunity? So that's my, I guess, concern is you turn this in, you automatically know that you've been getting these funds from the county. Is there some kind of accountability where you show what you've been doing within that year? So then again, somebody else can maybe get an opportunity to have fundings that also provide a good service.
I will say this year, with the scoring, we're looking at the financial health and need. If they're compliant, that's with the 501(c)(3), they're registered with state, they've got the general liability. We're looking at the organizational capacity, the project feasibility and impact as Commissioner Fairclough said, if they are providing a service, otherwise that the county isn't having to provide. And then we're looking at what kind of measurements that they can provide to us to report back to the board of what they did with that money in our community.
And how are we advertising for this? I get that all the time. Some people don't even know this is an ongoing thing. So how do new people get a chance to apply for this?
It was,
It was already open and closed.
yes, sir. Yes.
So again, the focus here is to provide some direction on a couple of things. I'll go to Commissioner Adams, and then we're going to move forward.
I would like to see if, when you bring it forth, whether they've gotten any of the other funding that we've been giving out throughout the year.
Okay.
So if you've gotten some prior funding out through this year, through the ARPA, through these other micro grants, I think that should be on the sheet, or we should be able to know that, because I think that dictates. And Commissioner Tyson, Mr. Chair, I hear Commissioner Tyson when he said that some of these folk that we gave money to, our audit costs more than the money we're giving them. Some of them only getting $5,000 or $10,000. They're $15,000. It's not like they're getting, this huge amount of money. That's why, in terms of viability of their nonprofit, this is just basically get them through the year and get some of the things that they need to do. I think they're really not getting. There's only a few that's getting a considerable sum of money.
So, Board, if there's consensus, what I've heard is we're going to go ahead and keep the same procedures we've kept. So you're going to bring everybody that got funded the previous year. You're going to bring all the applicants, and we're going to take a look at them and make any determination. If there's a question around audit or review, less than $250,000, review above $250,000, audit based on the manager's recommendation, and that provides a framework for this outside funding, no cap.
And the amount that, if they got.
And the amount of any additional grants that they may have received from the county and the description of that grant, whether it's impact or community impact grant or other grants.
How long they've been getting funded?
Yes, sir.
In term of how many times they've been funded by the county. So we'll have all that when it comes to the budget, and we can make any determinations and dollar amount there, no cap. All right, we're going to
If we
go ahead
can
and.
bring that at a workshop.
Yeah, when we get to that portion of the budget, you can bring it back then, when we get to that time. All right, we'll go ahead and move to budget process and expectations. Just a couple things, and I'll try to drive it, Ms. Shaw, if I can, so we can move through this and finish out. There's a question, as we look at County Manager, if you can ensure we get an update on public engagement like we had last year with the budget cycle, if we can just get briefed on that at a future time, or even by email, what the plan is, if that's consensus here, the board. But then also, I know as we look at our budget workshop session, or budget workshop sessions, we want to be respectful of the time. There's some discussions to put them in the duty day, or the work day, and be a little bit more flexible. So I would leave that to the staff, if the board's okay with that, as you bring back those dates and times, that we're okay with some of those being in that work day period, and we're be respectful of the staff's time as well. I think that captures, we've already given you the pieces of information that we'll want ahead of time or during the budget cycle. I think that matches. Any other expectations of the process, board? County Manager Greer, does that give you what you need for planning?
Yes, sir, Chairman.
Okay. All right, any other points on that? So summary of direction to County Manager. I think we've got a staff recap. If somebody can just, it may be helpful that after this, I know we historically don't do it, if we recap the do-outs, make sure the entire Commissioner Board gets it, so if there's something that wasn't captured or misunderstood, that we can clarify it. If we can do that, in a reasonable time, that will be beneficial.
We will try to send that out tomorrow.
And for the sense of time, I know you're used to me going back and framing things up, and I have them here, but I won't. I will look for the email to come out around, make sure we captured all the guidance. County Manager Greer, I'd ask if there's anything that additionally that you need from us that we did not cover today.
Yeah.
Board, are there any additional comments or directions you want on this budget workshop? Vice Chairman Jones.
Don't worry, I'm gonna get us out of here. Mr. Greer, I just wanted to be clear. I know that you're not able to until 2027, 2028. I want to be clear for those that are listening. That doesn't mean, though, that we won't be looking at certain departments such as social services or public health in regards to individual certain positions, because that is why, I don't want to go backward, but we do have a lot of openings because of salary. So are you stating that that doesn't mean we're not going to have some salary increases, correct, for certain areas? Is that going to be individually done?
Yeah, on a case-by-case basis,
Okay.
Vice Chairwoman Jones, we evaluate every salary for every position. And so if there's a position and we find a candidate and we look at them, we evaluate whether we're meeting the market or if we're doing the offer process, if we need to increase that. If that causes compression, then we adjust those additional positions that are impacted by that adjustment to that salary for that individual.
Well, I
For the
appreciate-
position, not the individual, because it's position-based, but we'll make that adjustment throughout the organization.
Thank you for clearing that up, because I know there's a lot of vacancies in social services.
Commissioners, anything else? County Manager Greer, thank you, you and your staff, for the work on this. I think this will be fruitful for us as we move forward into the budget cycle. I think it's important that we try to align as quickly as we can so we can move to a productive budget session. I do appreciate everyone's time. I apologize that we went over a little bit, but I think these are important conversations. And so, hearing no other comments or questions, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We've got a motion to adjourn. It's been properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, ask for your vote. Raise your right hand. Affirmative.
Unanimous.
I ain't campaigning.
And we're adjourned.